Okay, look who we have here. This is going to be a special podcast with two people very important to the table games industry. The guy on your left top there, with that sharp white shirt there, drinking the coffee there, or he is all I can tell you is this: 3 years ago, Nick Ippolito told me before I put on my first conference at the Sahara, which was the second of the Global Table Game Protection Conference. Uh, he told me I got to get this guy Michael Chapman to present, and yeah, I said, you know what? I've seen him on LinkedIn. I've seen his comments and I've seen his articles and what he wrote about. Yeah, I actually thought of reaching out to him to speak because I never met him before. I didn't know him. And I told Nick, well, I didn't think the guy was really interested, right? And so I did. And Mike's been a speaker there for the last three conferences. And the performance he just recently gave at the double performance he recently gave at the Tulsa gig was really something. I mean, this guy is some speaker, and he's really moved right to the forefront of the table game sector. Speaking at was it the G2E spoke at last year, and he's become quite quite in demand lately. And I'm lucky that he still has time for me here to be on this podcast. And the guy
Always
down the yeah, I'm really glad about that. Now the guy down there in the center is that's Zach Brownson. Zach is a table game developer and a new table games developer, and he has been at every one of my conferences, and he's entered the best new table game contest all four times. Now, personally, I've liked his game whatever game it was, I liked it every year. And he did not place in the first three ballots, but this year he got his recognition, which is well deserved. He won the contest. He had a great game, and he really is one of the leading developers now. And if I read correctly, Zach, your game is already this new game. Would you first tell us the name of the game and tell us a little bit about what it is and why casinos are going to like it? And I believe it's already going into Firekeepers and Eagle Mountain Casino. And would you tell us also where we're going to find it and when? Go ahead, Zach.
Yeah, I'd love to. Thanks, Richard. So the game is Double for More Blackjack. And in this business, the name's the game. So it's regular blackjack, but you can double down for more. It plays just like regular blackjack. Players can double, but instead of regular double down, you can triple down or quadruple down. So you can bet up to 3 times your bet on the double down. So those strong advantage hands, players can play more money and win more money. But really, that's the premise. We keep it nice and simple. And as you mentioned, this game will be going into Firekeepers relatively soon. We don't have an exact launch date yet, but things are rolling there probably within the next couple months. The game will be live in Michigan at Firekeepers. As you said, Eagle Mountain Casino out in California. No time frame on that yet, but some point later this year. And we'll find this game in some other places too. I've got another California property committed, as well as a couple in Minnesota.
And that's my man Ron Washington out there at Eagle Mountain, right?
Yeah, I've known Ron for a few years. I've been working on. He's liked my games for a while, but this one's going to be a hit. So
he's part of now of what I'm calling the big three in table games development. Of course, we have John Fell and Derek Miller from Firekeepers, and Ron Washington is really installing a lot of new games. So with the help of guys like that, we're all going to keep this table games industry alive and pumping with the evolution of new table games. And Mr. Chapman, speaking about the evolution of new table games, you have certainly evolved in that evolution. So you were on the panel with the best new table games panel with Zach and the guys from Casino Gaming Development, Angel Espino and his great team. What did you get from that panel?
Well, first I want to say congratulations, Zach. Well deserved.
thank you.
But that panel was excellent, and I think one of the things that from a operations standpoint, that you had with the developers there, including Zach, is they are focusing on the ability for the games to be understood by the players quickly, understood by the dealers quickly, and offering a good, simple product that is enticing to the players, but is not overwhelming for the staff to learn how to watch and how to deal.
And Zach, one thing I noticed in that panel, which I really thought was great, is because, and I've always spoken about camaraderie between you guys, all you new developers, um, because you're competitors, obviously, because there's only a certain amount of new games that can go on in casinos each year. You guys are always supportive of each other. I noticed on LinkedIn, whichever guy it is that posts something about the developing process of his new game, or where it's at, or why it's good. I noticed all you guys are liking the posts and commenting favorably. But what I especially noticed, and Mike, we were sitting right in between it, and you noticed it too, is when you first looked at that panel, I mean, we had three guys or three people. We had Angel, Colin, and Kathy from Casino Gaming Development, and then we had Zach, and then we had you in the middle of it. So we basically had two companies who had one company, Angel's company, had three speakers, and Zach was by himself. And I noticed that in total amount of time speaking, it was like 50, apart from when you were speaking, Michael, it was like 50-50. It was either Angel, Kathy, or Colin speaking totally 50% of the time, and Zach was speaking 50% of the time. And it almost went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So it's like nobody was trying to hog, for lack of a better word. Nobody was trying to hog the scene. And, to me, and of course, going in, the two favorites to win the contest were, of course, none other than Casino Gaming Development and Zach. And Zach's company is Houseway Gaming, for those of you who don't know that. And it was so fair. And naturally they finished one and two, like most people expected. So that's something that struck me as really, really, really good, because I think all the new games developers know that they need to support each other too, for the benefit of the industry. So it really, how do you guys? What's your take on that?
Yeah, it's a small group of developers, but there's a real community between them. And so, I've known Angel and his team for years. The Luck brothers have been doing this for years. And even some of the new faces at your show, Jimmy with Dakota Dual Draw, I've been talking to him online for a couple of years. And there's kind of just a really, like you said, supportive community available. I remember last year, CGD and those guys would, come check out your game and give feedback. And it's like, hey, what if you, do this for the progressive? You could add this here. And they offer tips and feedback, and they're really supportive. And that's kind of what blew me away too. When I got in this, like thinking we're competitors, we're competing against each other. But it's really hard not to like some of these people. Like they're genuinely some of the best people I've met in my life.
And Jimmy Reed,
it's definitely the epitome of a friendly competition. All the developers that I've met, I haven't had a single instance in any of the conferences that we've had where a developer spoke negatively about anybody else's game. It was always a positive conversation, always building up each other. I'm going to get myself in a little bit of trouble here, because really I think that from a developer standpoint, really the big competition, or the big wall, the big negative, whatever you want to call it, is really something that the industry needs to kind of step up with. And that is the regulatory side. Me being in a commercial casino, I'm at a restriction as to what the state is going to allow me to do. And that's really where, like Firekeepers, all the California casinos, really the tribal world is really stepping up with the development, because it's a little easier to streamline the entry into the market for the game developers through the tribal casinos than it is through the commercial casinos. And I think that's, speaking just for myself, that's a little disappointing, to be honest with you.
I just want to. Go ahead, Zach. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, he's spot on. Like, that was the biggest learning curve for me, is all the jurisdictional rules, because each state is its own jurisdiction, each tribe is its own jurisdiction. Some have interplay between the two. Like, every market's its own market, like, from a jurisdictional standpoint, and there's a big learning curve there for sure.
How about that ballot count? How exciting was that? You mentioned Jimmy Reed, the new guy, came out of nowhere there, where everybody appreciated his game as well, and he was leading for toward the end of that count. He was leading, and then it kept going back and forth. Then Angel took over, then you took over, and you were the last guy to take over, and you held it. That was really exciting. At the last minute, I decided, hey, why go into, like, before the last 3 years, I was counting the ballots with Michael Shackelford, the Wizard of Oz, and we would go, like, into a small area and do it ourselves, and then we would have the results ready to announce at the luncheon. So so I didn't know what I was going to do. Michael, I was going to ask you to count them, because Shackelford wasn't there this year. So of course, you're being as well respected as you are. I mean, everybody would have been in agreement that you count them with me or something like that. I never want to be in a position to count them alone. And then I was discussing it with my wife, and I said, hey, why are we doing this? Why don't we just have a nice, exciting ballot in the luncheon? And that for me, that was the highlight of the conference. It was like thrilling, It was like, oh, I should send the tape into ESPN. But Zach, I want to ask you a question, and Michael, you probably have some thoughts on this as well. When you win the contest, right? Obviously that elevates your name, and it's great for your company, and you get the automatic install, and I can't think of a better place than Firekeepers, because originally I was thinking that getting it installed initially on the Las Vegas Strip was really that much better than any place else. It's proven not to be the case from my experience with it. So of course you get that installation. But the question is, now, all the games, how many games have you developed so far? About, if you don't remember, that really you finished.
Yeah, so right now I have 7 technically that I have GLI approval that are on the market. But I've probably developed well over 50 games in the last 5 years, and most of them never got to the point of commercializing, but they got to the point of rudimentary math, where I'm putting them in front of players to get feedback. So I've been doing a lot of development. I kind of take what works and I keep it. If it doesn't work, I throw it away and start fresh, and that's kind of how I've evolved in my game development.
Well, let's talk about the games that have seen the light of commercialization. Games that you've exhibited before, and they didn't win the contest, but obviously, like for me, I've seen a few of your games and I thought they were all good. So when you win a contest like this, and you get your new game now into double for more, you get that into the casinos now. Does that make it easier, or does that get for you, or does that get more casinos involved in your past games? Does it make it easier, like, to now successfully bring your past games into casinos? Does it help?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, my big thing is I wanted to create kind of a diversified portfolio, but you need a way to get into these markets. And I wanted to use this game as just a simple way, a game that I believe will be successful. And then once you get that relationship established and you show them, hey, I have this game that works, you build some trust for some of the other games that are, some cool concepts, but maybe they're, at first glance, they seem maybe a little too far different. But, you kind of build that trust, and then you can introduce some new, like, fun concepts that are still dirt simple, still fun to play, but they might need a little nudge before they get there.
Michael, how important is the new table game evolution to the continued success or percentage of the total gaming market of brick and mortar casinos?
Well, I don't think it's any secret that a lot of people know me as the sky is falling guy when it comes to brick and mortar. I think the online presence is going to continue to grow. And I think that's a good thing, honestly. But I think the brick and mortars have to partner with their online presence. And I think that really for the success of the brick and mortar, it's got to be the experience, that interpersonal experience. And again, another big kudos to Zach and to Angel and his team, because that is a major thought process in all the games that they're bringing to market, is how that interpersonal experience happens between the dealers and between the players. And it really is. It's what's going to keep us on the map. I tell people all the time, I don't miss being able to teleport like they do on Star Trek, because I've never been able to do it. And these young folks coming up, they've got their minds buried in these phones, and they don't know that personal experience. And until we give it to them, they're not going to know what they're missing, and they're not going to miss it. So it's great to see these new games coming out, the new games that have that interpersonal experience, that ability for the dealer and the player to connect.
And Zach, now that we mentioned online, and of course, what Michael said, the online market continues to grow. How does that affect you? Not with your new games going into the brick and mortar casinos, but what about your games becoming online games? How does that work? Are you interested in that, or is that an easy adaptation? How does that work?
Yeah, so I'm in kind of the early phases of getting into some of the iGaming markets. One of my games in particular is just especially well suited for it. It's my cash out craps game, where I add a cash out option on bonus craps. Like, it'll absolutely work on a table, but it's just so compelling to do something like that online, where you can just offer a little, modal on the page where it says, hey, do you want to cash out here? Do you want to cash out here? Where something like operationally might be a little bit much for dealers. You can introduce these new concepts into iGaming, and you can have, the screen handle some of these operation things for you. And it's a new avenue for game development. And as a developer, it opens up a lot more options, because as we've talked about, dealers, you have to keep it simple for the dealers, for the players, because you don't have, you can't rely on them to explain every little, thing about your game. They have to cover the basics. They have to greet the guests. They've got a lot of things going on in their jobs. But in iGaming, you can use the whole user interface, to explain things when needed to the players. So it opens up a lot more possibilities for developers. It's definitely something I'm pursuing.
Michael.
Yeah, I think, again, that I saw Zach's cash out craps. I agree with him 100%. I think that aspect of it fits perfectly with the online market. And I think that the developers, in looking at what we can do and really blend in that partnership between the brick and mortars and the online, seeing these new games come out, something that I would say, again, and I'll get myself in trouble with my vendors now. I did it with my regulators. But vendors, I mean, reach out to these guys that are developing these games, because, unfortunately, it tends to be a situation where a lot of these bigger vendors, we'll leave them nameless. They just want to buy these people out. Let's buy them out. Let's buy them out. Let's buy them out. How about partnering with them? How about partnering with the Zach and allowing your ability to get into some of these jurisdictions and your licensing? Because some of the licensing can be outrageously expensive. And allowing them to piggyback on your licensing and license their games through your bigger company and getting into these markets.
Sounds definitely like a plan. And Zach, speaking of that, so would you give us your schedule as where you might be exhibiting in the future, and also let us know where people could contact you? I know you have a website, and if they want to see online demos of your game, would you games, I should say? So would you give us that information?
Yeah, I'd love to. So my website is housewaygaming.com. And as you mentioned, I have demos of all my games online. You can read a little bit about them and click a link and play all the games I have and see how they work for yourself. I'm on the fence on exhibiting at G2E this year. It's just very cost prohibitive, but I'll be there regardless. And, I spend the time meeting with people and running around. like a madman trying to find space to meet with people there. But yeah, if you're interested in meeting me, reach out on LinkedIn. It's probably the best way to reach me, and we'll find a time to make it work.
Okay, sounds good. And once more, Zach, congratulations for the big win. And I know that you are a major player in the new table games industry now, and I wish you a very long and profitable career with that. You deserve it. You've worked very hard on your games, and not only that, you're a very likable guy, and you have a good way of demonstrating your game. I always enjoy at these conferences when I come up to your table and I play the game. I remember the one at the Sahara. I was jumping up and down because I got on I got on a hot streak, and I said to my wife, "How come I never win like this in the real casino?" I mean, I just kept winning every bet, and I was going to say to you, but I didn't want to sound stupid. I was going to say to you, Zach, are you sure the house has an advantage on this game? I mean, that's how much I was winning. So thanks a lot for doing the interview with me, Zach and Michael. As usual, the next time I got to get you for a podcast, I will try and give you about a year's notice in advance. And so all I can to close this out, all I can say is long live new table games. And
Absolutely.
Thank you everybody for watching the podcast, and go out and play double for more and all of Zach's other games, and have a good time. And we will see you. You'll see Zach at G2E, and we will see you guys at the next table games conference in February of 2026. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Richard, and congrats, Zach.